first thing we're going to do is we're going to review a little bit about what we talked about last week. So, in our lesson, we've been talking about this question, how did the world begin? And we've talked about two main ideas that people have about how the world began. Can anybody remember the names of those two ideas? Connor, I saw your hand first.
Evolution.
Okay, and what's the other one?
Creation.
Good, awesome job. Evolution and creation. Now, keep thinking because we talked about evolution. Could anybody just tell me a little bit, just really short, about evolution? Can you do that? No? Okay, Jed.
Some people say evolution is like the world was a little tiny cell.
Okay, good.
There was billions and billions of years. It got bigger.
So you can kind of look at some of our pictures up here. Some of you, this is your first time tonight, but we talked about evolution teaches that, yes, life began as a little cell because there was an explosion that happened, and then that cell began to grow to bigger, and it began to change over millions and billions of time, and then it developed into plants, animals, and human beings. And we saw some of these other pictures here. They will, yes. What's that? Yeah, they think that that apes or some kind of species like that they were able to evolve or change until eventually we had human beings like we are today. And we talked about this picture over here as well. There's this animal that's down at the very bottom, and it began to change little by little until, what do you see at the very top? The horse. Okay, so that's a little bit about evolution anyway. Now, we also talked about creation. What did we say? Who could describe creation or tell a little bit about it? You can do this one? Mm-hmm.
People thought it would be some explosion, some believed it was God who created it.
Okay, so if we're talking about creation, then we're talking about the fact that God would have created it. And how long did God take to create the world? 6 days. Whereas evolution says, oh, it took millions and billions of years. God did it in 6 days. All right, good. Now, you're going to have to really put on your thinking caps for this one. We talked about a word that means an idea that must be proved. Keegan. Yes, good job. Hypothesis. And we also talked about a word that means something that's known or proved to be true. Yes? If it's proved to be true, what would we call it? All right, Kaylee? Fact. And what if it's false? That one is fiction. Good job. All right. Now, what did the world look like at the very, very beginning? Okay, good. It was darkness. There was nothing. And so you can see up on our screen, there was nothing up there because that's supposed to represent what was there at the beginning of the world. Now, who can tell me who was the only person or the only being on the earth at this time? Connor. God. Good, good. And this is a really tough one. Who can tell me what was the name of the book? It's in the Bible where we read about creation. Yes, good, very good job. All right, what did God make on the very first day? We talked about this last week. Okay, you weren't here last week, but do you know? Okay, he did make the heavens and the earth, but specifically, what did he do on the first day? Jalen? Light, good, very good job. And how did God create light, and how did he make everything else? Connor?
He spoke.
All right, he spoke. Now, last week in our lab experiments, we tried to make a light bulb light up, didn't we? But what did we have to have? We had these wires, we had copper, we had zinc, we had lemons, we had Coke, we had all kinds of things, didn't we? God just spoke, and the light appeared. Good. All right, what did God think about that light that he made? Okay? All right, very good. He said it was good. All right, and when God separated the light from the darkness, what did he make? Nathan? All right, very good. The light became what we call day, and the darkness became night. So last week, we talked about what God made on the very first day, which God made light, and he separated it into the day and the night. Tonight, though, we're going to talk about what God made on the second day. Now, just wait a minute. I gave 4 of you to be my volunteers, and some of you have balloons, right? So the 4 of you who have balloons, I want you to come up right now. Remember what I told you, though. You have to stay far to the sides, okay? Whoever has the balloons. All right, so why don't you move just a little bit more farther there. All right, now, each one of these have balloons. And when I say go, you're going to get your balloon out, and you're going to blow it up for us. Can you do that? You can put your mask down to do that, yeah, because otherwise it'll be a little hard. Okay? When you get all done and we think your balloon, don't make it so big that it's going to pop, okay? You just want to fill it with air, okay? And then don't tie it, just hold on to it, okay? Hold on to the end. All right, ready? Go. Oh, I see some good balloons there. What do you think? I think the green ones look better than the red ones. What do you think? Oh, the reds are catching. All right, so hold on to it. Good. All right, I think everybody's good. All right, now, hold on to your balloons for just a minute. Those of you who are still sitting down, why did those balloons start getting bigger? Jalen? All right, they were blowing air inside them, weren't they? Now, why are some of the balloons a little bit bigger than the other balloons?
Because they put different amounts of air in.
Okay, yeah, they're different sizes because there's different amounts of air in them. That's right. All right, now we're going to do something else kind of fun, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with this, okay? But when I say go, you're going to let go of your balloon, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, now, here's my word of caution. Those of you who are sitting down, do not get up and try to go get that balloon. All right? Remember, we're trying to be really careful with our virus, right? These guys have put their mouths on those balloons. So the only person that can touch their balloon is themselves. So watch your balloon, see where it goes, and then you go pick it up and put it in your pockets, okay? Don't let anybody else touch it, all right? Okay, are we ready? Let's see what happens. Ready? Go. Oh, wow. Some of them really went far, didn't they? All right, thank you, volunteers. You can go and sit down. All right, now, why did those balloons just go every which way? Yeah. Okay, they filled them up with air, and then they released the air. They went every which way because the air was released out of them, wasn't it? Now, even though we can't see air, air is all around us, isn't it? Yeah, it surely is. But do you know that there was a time when there was absolutely no air on the earth? If you remember last week, we looked at this verse, Genesis 1:2, and we said that the earth was without form and void. Those words that are underlined in yellow. We talked about that means that the earth wasn't in the same shape necessarily that we know of it today, and the word void just really means empty. But what was in the earth? What's that red word underlined?
Darkness.
Darkness. Darkness was everywhere. But if we keep reading, the very last line says, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the what? The water. So evidently there was water covering all the earth. And not only was the water all over the earth, but it was all around the earth as well. So what if the world was covered with water and it had water all around it? What would that mean? Well, that would mean there wouldn't be any dirt or land like we see outside. That means there would be no sky like we see outside. That means that there wouldn't even be any air. There was nothing but darkness and just water everywhere. Now, I asked 3 other volunteers. So if I ask you to be a volunteer, I want you to come up now. Remember what we talked about. You have to be far along on the brick walls. Who else did I ask to come up here? All right, yes? Can you come? You can come on this side or that side. Did I ask you to? Okay, yep. Good. All right, now, we'll have Miss Sandy count for us. But when I say go, I want you to take a big breath, and then I want you to hold your breath. All right? Go ahead and put your mask down for right now so we can see you, okay? All right, there you go. And yep, you got it. Can you move? Yep, just a little bit that way. There you go. All right, so when we say go, we're going to count. We're going to see how long you can hold your breath. All right, ready? On your mark, get set, go. And Miss Sandy's going to help us. Let's see. Oh, they're really holding their breath long. I hope their faces don't turn red though. Who's breathing? Did you breathe? Yeah. All right, this one's finished. Who else?
I got long on.
Oh, did you breathe? Yeah.
I got long on.
He's going to explode in a minute. Oh, are you still holding your breath? Okay. All right. Wow, that was really long. All right, so what do you think this one did?
Katie was about 47, I think.
47.
Or 47. And Connor was like 57 or something. Or a little bit.
Okay, good. And you were the longest. Good job. All right, you guys can go and sit down. All right, now, why did I have them do that? Well, while they were holding that breath, that seemed like a long time, didn't it? But 2 of you didn't even do it for a whole minute. And 1 of you did it just a little over a minute. A minute's not really very long, is it? How would you like it if there was absolutely no air whatsoever? Air is important, isn't it? And we need it to breathe, or what would happen? Or we would die, right? Yeah, exactly. But you know what? God knew that. God knew exactly what all living things were going to need. Last week, we talked about the idea that God made light, and he divided the light into day and night because he knew we needed an active time, but he also knew we needed a rest time in order to let our bodies rest. And today we're going to talk about how God made the sky, the atmosphere, or the air. And God knew that all living things were also going to need that air as well. These things didn't happen by accident. God planned them all out step by step. So we've said so far that there was just water covering the earth. All right, but God did something amazing with this water. And we're going to read about it because what book of the Bible did we say we read? All right, Genesis, and we've been in Genesis chapter 1, and so we're going to continue on to read these verses. So we're reading today out of Genesis 1, verses 6 and 7. Can you all read with me? Got to read really loud. All right, here we go. Then God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And I forgot to tell you, there's this little word right here. Do you see that word? Firmament. That's not a word that we use very much, is it? But that's a word that really just means the sky, or something like the atmosphere. So these verses were then telling us that God separated the water that was on the earth from the water that was around the earth, and he divided that. Oh, I forgot this verse. Sorry. We have one more verse. Genesis 1:8 says, "And God called the firmament heaven. Sometimes you might hear people refer to the sky as the heavens, and that's just another name for it. All right, so what we were saying then was God then divided the water that was on the earth from the water that was kind of around the earth, and he made the sky, or he made the atmosphere as we see it here. Do you think the sky or the atmosphere is very important? It is, yeah. You know, we had some people that came up here just a few minutes ago, and we asked them to hold their breath. And they didn't really hold it very long, did they? Just like a minute. And they needed air again. Well, the sky or the atmosphere has the air that we need in it. So it's really important, isn't it? Now, there's something else that helps us in the atmosphere, and that's the atmosphere of the sky is kind of like a blanket that goes all the way around the earth. And this blanket helps to protect the earth. How many of you have ever gone outside, you've been to the lake, swimming, just been outside, and what happens to your skin? Hannah? You have to talk really loud. What happens when you go outside for a long time in the sun? You do get hot. Yeah, what else might happen, Tucker? What happens to your skin? Yeah, you get a sunburn. All right, and sometimes those sunburns can really hurt, can't they? But imagine, there's like a blanket that sort of covers the earth. And that blanket, as the sun is shining down on the earth, that blanket sort of keeps all the sun's rays from coming to the earth. And you might say, well, I see the sun. You're right, you do, but you don't get all the sun's rays. So even though your skin might get burned, you're not getting all the sun's rays because that atmosphere is like protecting you. And it also helps it in this way. The sun's rays go through the atmosphere and then they kind of stay in the atmosphere, and that helps to keep our atmosphere or our air that's around us warmer, because otherwise we would get really, really, really cold at night once the sun has gone down. So in that way, the sky and the atmosphere is also really important. And then you can also see in this picture, what else do you see in the sky in this one? All right, Jeff? Okay, so we see clouds. That's where the wind comes from. If we were to get rain, that would come from the sky or the atmosphere. Snow, all those things come from there. And so they are really important. And I just want to show you this too. We don't always think about, we look up in the sky and we just say, oh, look at the sky. But scientists will tell you that there's different layers of the atmosphere, and certain things happen in some of those layers. And we're not going to talk about all those layers today. But if you can see in the first one, if you see hot air balloons, or if you see not really huge airplanes, but like smaller airplanes, those will be in the first layer. The next layer is some of the more like military jets and those kind of things. If you go farther up into the sky, that's where we would find all the stars. And if you keep going, does anybody know what that little weird shaped thing over there is? Do you know? It is a satellite, maybe like the International Space Station or something like that. But satellites, that's good. And this over here would be something that probably NASA would have sent off into the outer space. So these are just a little bit about the layers of the earth. And all of those things, not the layers of the earth, the layers of the atmosphere. And all of these things are things that God has made and put there in order to help us. Now, although we can't see the atmosphere, it is really important. And that sky and water were not there by accident. It did not just happen by an explosion. God made it. It was part of his plan. And God is really amazing because he hasn't made animals or man yet, but he's getting everything ready so that he can make different animals and man on the earth, so that you'll have air to breathe, and you'll have the sun, and you'll have the light, and have day and night, because he thought all of those things were important. God is truly amazing, and I want every time you even take a breath, think about what an amazing God we have. All right, now, I have just some quick questions for us to see how well we were listening, okay? And then we're going to get on to our lab experiment, okay? So, what made the balloons get big with our volunteers? Yes. All right, the air that they put in. What covered the earth at first? Well, yeah, it is sort of a blanket, but what did we say was all around the earth? Water. Good. I told you about this big word called firmament. Does anybody remember what firmament means? Okay, good. Sky or the atmosphere. Great job. What did God make on the second day? Okay, good. The sky, the water. He divided the water. All right, and again, how did he make those things? Michelle? Nope. Okay, Hannah? All right, he just spoke, and they just happened. Good. Can anybody tell me one reason why our sky or our atmosphere is important? Okay, it gives us air. Connor, do you have one?
It's like a blanket to protect us from all of the sun's rays.
Good. Do you have one? Okay, so we talked about that, the air. Yeah. Do you remember we talked about, there's clouds and there's wind.
The clouds for rain.
Yeah, so it gives us the rain, the snow, and all those kind of things. Good. All right, last question. Do you think that God made the light, the day, the night, the sky, and all these things by accident? No. Or do you think it was his plan? It was his plan. And I hope that you'll remember that. Yes.
All right, welcome to the lab experiment for day number 2. Now, if you remember in our lesson today, we talked about how water covered all over the earth as well as all around the earth. And so God then separated the water that was on the earth from the water that was in the air or around the earth. And we said God made the sky, or he made the atmosphere. One of the things that we talked about that God made then, when he made the atmosphere, was he also made clouds. So today in our experiment, we are going to make a cloud in a jar. So if you're doing this at home, these are some of the things that you'll need. You'll need some kind of a jar with a lid. Doesn't matter, it can be a jar like this, it can be a canning jar of some sort, it could be a pickle jar, it can be any kind of jar. Doesn't even need to be this tall, but if it is sort of big, it does help. Then you'll need about 1 cup of hot water. You'll need some ice, and we're going to use some hairspray today. And the aerosol kind, I think, works the best, all right? So what we're going to do then, we have this is an electric tea kettle, and so we've heated our water in this, and my assistant is going to pour 1 cup of water very carefully so you don't burn yourself, all right? And then she's gonna pour it, that's good. Then she's gonna pour it into the jar. Good. All right, so we've done that. The next thing that you wanna do is you wanna take your jar and you wanna kind of swirl the water around a little bit, all right? And all you're trying to do is heat the sides of the jar a little bit, all right? Then you're gonna take your jar and you're gonna turn it upside down on top of your jar. And then you're going to put a few of the ice cubes on top of your jar. Now, in order to make a cloud is formed when water vapor is going to condense into little water droplets, and they have to attach to some kind of particles. It could be dust, it could be smoke, it could be some kind of pollen that's in the air. And then when you get a lot of these little water droplets together, they're gonna form a cloud. So that's what we're gonna do right now. Now, after you put the ice on, you have to let it set for about 20 seconds. And then we're ready for the really cool part. And I'm gonna let my assistant do this. I'm gonna move some of this around so you'll be able to see exactly what happens. Now you have to do this fairly quickly. I'm gonna take this lid off. She's gonna put the hairspray inside, and then I have to put the lid back on really quickly. All right, and then we're just going to see what happens. Can you see inside the jar? It's starting to get a little bit so you can't see as well through it. And that's sort of the cloud that's forming inside our jar. You can let it set for a few minutes, and then, are you ready to see the cloud escaping from our jar? Can you take the lid off and let's see what happens? Oh, look at the cloud that's coming out of the jar now. Is that cool or what? You've made a cloud inside this jar. Now again, you might say, how does that work? Well, we had our warm water down here, and as it's there, it's gonna turn, some of the water that's there will turn into water vapor. The water vapor is gonna rise to the top of the jar where it's going to meet the cold water from the ice that we had on the top there. And as it cools, then that water vapor is going to appear. And then when we put the hairspray in, that acts as kind of like our particle that the water vapor or the water droplets can form to, and that is what makes your cloud. All right, so you can do this over and over again. If you want to put a little more hairspray in there quickly. Yep, ready? And you can do this again and again until your water sort of gets hot or your ice melts. You can do it several times and just have a little bit of fun with it because you're making a cloud. And this is part of when God made the atmosphere, we had clouds. All right, ready? Here comes our cloud that's going to be escaping from our jar. Isn't that cool or what? You can see it just getting out of the jar right now and going into the atmosphere. All right, our last experiment for today is just trying to show how the Earth's atmosphere is so important. One of the reasons that we said the atmosphere is important is that it tries to help even out the temperatures of the Earth. And what we mean by this is even though the sun's rays are coming and striking the Earth, it doesn't make it so hot that we can't stand it. Neither does it when it gets really cold outside. Do we, I know people can freeze to death, but it takes some time. The idea is because we have an atmosphere and have water in our atmosphere, and not only that, we have lakes and rivers and oceans, all of those things help to regulate the temperatures on the Earth. Now, on my paper here, I have some information about another planet called Mars. And Mars does not have water. It has no lakes, no oceans, no rivers of any sort. And do you know that the temperature can change 180 degrees in 24 hours or just one day? Now, we might have a really hot day and it might get kind of colder at night, but there's not usually more than 20, maybe at the most 30 degrees difference in one day, or it's unusual if there's more than one. But we never have 180 degree difference in one day. But other planets that do not have water will have this. So we're gonna just demonstrate a little bit the idea of how water helps to regulate the temperature. All right, so Victoria is gonna blow this balloon up, and she's just going to put air inside this balloon, okay? And I already did this one just because of our experiment. I don't know if you can see in here or not, but this one, can you hear this one? It doesn't have just air in it. It has air, but it is filled about this much with water, okay? So this one is gonna be only air, and the one that I have in this little thing here has air with some water in it, okay? And then, can you get it with those gloves? It's a little tricky. Okay, now I'm gonna hold this one, and some of the materials I forgot. You need balloons, you need matches, and then we're just using one of those little tea light candles. Any candle or flame of any sort will work. So go ahead and light our candle for us. And we'll try to push this over here and try to not burn your gloves. Okay, good. All right, so put that candle back on the tray for us really carefully. All right, we're gonna move it up just a little bit. All right, then I want you to take this, then hold it up at the top, and you're just gonna hold it over the flame. You don't wanna get like so to burn it, but just put it over there. You can get it a little closer. And this was what happens when the earth would be heated from the sun's rays and there's no water in there. Oh, did you see what happened? Look at that. It just made the balloon burst because of that. Now, we're gonna try the same thing. You're gonna have to get another match because when this bursts, it sends all the air down and it always makes my candle go out. Okay, try to be really careful with that flame. If you're doing this at home, try to be super careful. All right, now we're gonna do the same thing, only this time you're gonna take this balloon with the water in it and you're gonna put it over there. And this balloon here, it took about 5 seconds or so before the balloon popped. And this one, we could wait and wait, but that water that's inside there is helping to distribute the heat so it doesn't pop the balloon as easily. Now, if you kept it on here for a long time, would it do it? Probably, but you can see it's not popping it right away, is it? And this is just to show us a little bit about how our water helps to regulate the Earth's temperatures. All right, I'm gonna hold this one while you blow up one more balloon. And this one still is not popping, but we're gonna show you one more time what happens. That's good. I'm gonna show you one more time when there's no water, what would happen to the balloon. Got it? All right, so I'm gonna move this one and you're gonna hold that one over the flame again and see what happens. Oh, there it goes. Well, I hope you've had fun today with our experiments with water, the atmosphere, and making clouds. See you next week.